Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's presentation. This is a sponsor showcase webinar by our sponsor, Chromite, Adventures in Decision Analytics. And I will pass the floor straight to Matt Gorman, who will be the moderator for today's presentation. Matt, you have the floor.
Welcome, everyone. We look forward to sharing with you what we've been up to lately and where we're excited to go in the future. We will be covering a lot today, so I have been urged to be very brief, with emphasis on very and emphasis on brief. We've spent some time deliberating over a title for this webinar, and we landed on Adventures in Decision Analytics. Well, because we're an adventurous group. As you can see here, we do some exciting things here at Chromite. We've engaged in a few events, from escape rooms to axe throwing, to even jumping out of perfectly good airplanes at 13,000 feet. Our webinar today is in two parts. First, we will talk about some pro bono work we did for a regional nonprofit organization in the arts. Next, we will tackle visualization. How to gain insights from vast amounts of data to make better decisions. Now for today's speakers. We have, four speakers who will share with us some of the things we've been up to today. We have Jack Klober, who will be coming up in a few moments. We will be listening to Amelia Celebi, consultant at Chromite, about her pro bono work. CC Chen, who would talk with us about data visualization, and a partner collaborator with us, Scott Evans, who is joining us from Australia. So we thank him for being with us at 2 o'clock in the morning his time. And coming on towards the end to help answer some technical questions we might get around the one of our tools we hope to show you, we look forward to showing you, will be Steve Hamlin, Managing Director at Chromite. We will have one poll question at the end of this webinar. So let's begin. I'd like to invite Jack Klober, owner and chairman of Chromite, to say a few brief words about Chromite as a company. Jack, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Matt, and I'm really happy and honored to kick this webinar off. I'm really excited because the title here with Adventures in Analytics just kind of communicates, I hope, that we're a small company, but we're having fun and we're having some real adventures this year, that's for sure. We started off way back in 2003 with one person. We have slowly grown down to about 15. We were focused only on pharma before, and now we're in agriculture, manufacturing, government, and finance, and of course in pharmaceuticals, which is where we started. We started with a couple of very experienced analysts in pharmaceuticals as contractors, and now we have almost completely switched over to employees and a really diverse team, from engineers, chemical engineering, industrial engineering, to statistics, to data scientists. And we're from India, China, US, Canada, and now even Australia. So from our diverse crowd, I hope you enjoy today's presentation, and hope you see the fun and the challenges that we're working on here at Chromite. Thanks, Matt.
Excellent. Thank you, Jack. So next, I'd like to introduce Amelia Celebi, our first speaker. She will share with us a little bit about some work we did for a nonprofit organization in the arts. What she will share with us today is representative of work we have done in the past here at Chromite for much larger for-profit organizations. This was a unique opportunity to provide similar services pro bono to a local community nonprofit organization. Take it away, Amelia.
Thanks, Matt. I'd like to share a project we did for young audiences in New Jersey and Eastern Pennsylvania. We used multiple objective decision analysis, or MODA, to approach decision-making for their primary fundraiser. Just to give some quick background on young audiences, their mission is to inspire young people and expand their learning through the arts. They do this by providing arts experiences to schools using professional teaching artists who work directly with the students. Young Audiences provides programs to students ages pre-K through grade 12, and they've reached over 12 million children. This collaboration started when Young Audiences posted a project through Inform's Pro Bono Analytics. It was a perfect fit for a few reasons. First, the project required decision analysis, or DA. Second, many of us at Chromite are amateur musicians, myself included. And third, since Chromite is located near their office in Princeton, New Jersey, the geography made meeting in person easy. Young audiences wanted to determine whether to continue with their primary fundraising event. For the last 5 years, they've been putting on a Dancing with the Stars style gala called Dazzle. Dazzle has been very successful in raising funds for young audiences. However, putting on the event is both time and effort intensive, which has caused fatigue to begin setting in with some board and staff members. So the question we worked to answer was, should young audiences continue hosting Dazzle, or should they replace it with an alternative primary fundraising strategy? So now the question might be, why MODA? We landed on the value-focused thinking approach, a large part of which is MODA. Since we were working with a nonprofit, there were so many other competing values beyond simply the financial aspect, such as fatigue and connection with the community. In addition, we were working with a board, which can be challenging because they often have different views and sometimes objectives are not aligned. This is precisely why the multiple objectives approach seems most appropriate. We followed Ralph Keeney's process for MODA. After identifying the problem, the next step was determining objectives and creating a value hierarchy. We had a limited amount of time, so the value hierarchy for this project was created to demonstrate the values just for Young Audience's primary fundraising strategy and not for the organization as a whole. There were 3 primary fundraising objectives, the leading one of which was meeting financial need. The other 2 primary objectives were sustainability and exciting donors in the community with Young Audience's mission. The sub-objectives in the value hierarchy were determined as objectives supporting the 3 primary objectives. We came up with measures to represent the sub-objectives through discussions with Young Audience's staff. As an example, for capacity to reach targeted goals under meet financial need and budget, we used net revenue. We were focused on how much money would be raised for Young Audiences. Another example, for exposure to the broader community, under excite donors in the community with mission, we used number of website hits. A high number of website hits means this particular strategy got people to go to Young Audience's website and learn more about the organization. Just to give a quick run through of the alternatives that we evaluated, Dazzle is a local Dancing with the Stars style competition where local VIPs are paired with professional dancers and perform at a gala event. Due to time constraints with everything we're covering in this webinar, we can't go into all of them, but I'll give an overview of a few. Dazzle, Creativity Luncheon, Celebrity Concert, and regional events are all event-based fundraisers. The remaining 3 are fundraising strategies. Let's look at the Benevon model. The others seem to us to be more self-explanatory in their name, but we had no idea about this one until it was explained to us. The Benevon model requires transforming Young Audience's office space for office tours conducted for donors and prospects. This educates them on the organizational mission, culminating in a breakfast with a group ask for donations. We sat down with both Young Audience's staff and some board members to determine the appropriate weighting for each objective, sub-objective, and measure. We went through these from the bottom of the value hierarchy up and made sure to discuss both trade-offs and put their assessment into context. As an example, when weighting the sub-objectives that support the higher objectives, excite donors in the community with mission, we asked them, so cultivating relationships with potential donors is almost 3 times more important than exposure to the broader community. Questions like this really help to facilitate good discussion amongst themselves. When putting together the value function, we determined the ranges of each measure from minimum to maximum values, and we scaled the expected values for each of the measures. This was straightforward for numeric measures, such as number of website hits. For subjective measures, we constructed a scale that was best, worst, and in the middle, assigning a value for each alternative measure. These were the results generated using logical decision software to assess the value produced by each alternative. We also provided Young Audiences with additional charts and graphs to delve deeper into both meeting financial need and efficiency. Now, when I'm saying efficiency, I mean revenue generated per non-iterative staff hour. Based on the jump off in value, there were 3 clear standouts: Celebrity Concert, Dazzle, and Creativity Luncheon. Since Reach Financial Goals had a weight of 65%, it outweighed all other objectives combined. Because it was weighed so highly, we were concerned that the alternatives with higher expected ability to reach financial goals would automatically come out of the top, and we see minimal impact in value from any other objectives. So we decided to perform sensitivity analysis, and we reduced the weight of Reach Financial Goals by 50%. All other weights were increased proportionally to see how that change would affect the value of each alternative. The results of the sensitivity analysis demonstrated the robustness of the evaluation, since changing the weight of reach financial goals had no impact on the order of ranking of the top 3 alternatives. However, it did shuffle around the order of the bottom 4 alternatives, as major gift programs moved from fourth to 6th, and funding need and regional events both moved up in the rankings. Now that we've gone through the analysis and results, let's discuss the process. In addition to the typical challenges with projects, such as data quality, time, and scope, some aspects of working with a nonprofit were different from what we've encountered in consulting for for-profit organizations. While for-profit organizations value maximizing profits, young audiences focus on the need to be able to fund their programs. Also, unlike working with a for-profit organization, pressure from competitors was less of a concern. There are other nonprofits in the area that hold fundraising galas, but the primary way they affect young audiences' fundraising is in terms of potentially conflicting event dates, which would cause lower turnout and lower return. The young audiences staff we worked with also felt a great need to have strong consensus with the board. While our meetings were primarily with a few high-up members of the young audiences staff, they wanted to keep their board as involved as possible. This often resulted in sending out surveys so we better understood their positions. There were also multiple people who were emotionally invested. A few members of the board were past winners of the Dazzle Dancing with the Stars competition, so considering other alternatives was difficult for them. The staff members we worked with did not have DA backgrounds or familiarity with MODA, so we decided to begin each meeting with an educational moment. This helped everyone get in the right headspace before approaching tasks such as developing the value hierarchy. We felt that the insights we gave them into decision quality could be applied beyond the scope of this project. We also prepared the final report and presentation more carefully, since we were sharing results with a more diverse and artistically inclined audience, and were unsure of the board members' backgrounds. In the end, we were able to come up with a top 3 alternatives to recommend for further study. We felt that based on both the emotional investment into Dazzle and the data they had available, that we couldn't tell them which alternative to choose. The young audiences staff had a good idea of how each alternative would do in terms of each of the measures, based on data from other local nonprofits and other chapters of young audiences. But there were other practicalities, like where each event would take place, or the cost and availability of celebrities that would need to be accounted for in further study. Both Chromite and young audiences benefited from this process and analysis. For young audiences, the benefit was twofold. First, a clear story emerged. We were able to recommend 3 alternatives that merited further consideration and eliminated 4 other alternatives. Although not much data was available for every alternative, we were able to take the estimates they gave us and transform them into valuable information. They also appreciated that our approach to providing recommendations was informational rather than dictatorial. Second, this gave them a new approach to data-driven decision-making. For Chromite, the benefit was also twofold. First, it gave us the opportunity to give back to the local community. Second, it allowed us to deepen our company experience with MODA after internal training on the subject. As Matt said earlier, while we as a company have MODA experience with large for-profit companies, it's a good learning experience for some of us who were never exposed to MODA. The development director for young audiences shared that working with a firm outside the nonprofit arts education field was a valuable learning experience, which helped them to see a more structured and systematic approach to decision making. And the president and CEO of Young Audiences commented that this method of analysis for decision making helped them to approach the process in a less biased manner. Okay, thank you. I'll pass this back to Matt now.
Well, thank you, Amelia. We'd like now to, if I didn't say this in the beginning, we were going to break, we have 2 sections to this webinar. I want to break the Q&A into 2 parts. So we'd like to open up this section, this few minutes to Q&A for this part of the presentation. And we do have a couple have come in so far. As Greg said earlier, as Hilda said earlier, that we do have that question box up. So here's a question I'd like to that's come in. It says, how much time did you have to spend on the educational moment?
Well, we generally begin each meeting with about 15 to 20 minutes really going through some DA stuff. such as how to put together the value hierarchy, coming up with alternatives, and how weighting was done.
We have another question. What software was used for MODA?
We used Logical Decisions.
Okay, we have a few coming in here. We're allotting 5 minutes for this. Let's see if we can get through as many as possible here. Was young audiences surprised that those particular 3 alternatives came up to the top?
Well, I think the thing that was really interesting about those 3 coming to the top was that they were all event-based fundraisers. They had brainstormed in the past about some of the other alternatives, which were more strategies, but they hadn't really looked into it in any sort of quantitative way. And so this was a really good way of showing them that an event-based fundraiser was more likely to meet all of their objectives.
Okay, we have several more coming in here. What was the approach to eliciting the weights, swing weights, and direct assessment? And I think this was mentioned earlier, but the question asked her, I think this was mentioned, but maybe a little more detail on how we elicited the weights.
Yeah, we did the weights by some discussions with some Young Audiences staff and board members. It was, we went through the value hierarchy from the bottom up, and we really had discussions with them. We tried to put things into context about how much more important one thing might be to them than another without inserting ourselves too much, and allowing them to really drive the discussion about what was most important to them.
And I'd like to jump in there too, Amelia, was that we also looked at, made sure that they viewed what we call the x-axis or the level, and that swing in the level as you compare the different sub-objectives.
We have two more here. We have 2 more. You mentioned the lack of data and data quality. What did you use to come up with the value assessments?
Well, they had some really great information and data on Dazzle, but the other alternatives, they were using estimates from other chapters of Young Audiences, because Young Audiences is a national organization, not just New Jersey and Eastern Pennsylvania. And we also use estimates from other local nonprofits.
All right, I'm going to go to one more question here, and we're actually a little bit ahead of time here. Was the application of the MODA probabilistic?
No, it was not.
And then,
we just didn't have that much data.
okay, maybe one more here. So this was a pro bono for a nonprofit. So how effort intensive was this in terms of number of meetings, the employees working on the project, et cetera?
Well, we had 4 employees working on this project. 2 were more involved in the day-to-day, but it was a really great experience because although we, as I mentioned, we do have a lot of company experience with MODA, some of us didn't have that background, and so it was great to really be able to get some experience for some of us. We had meetings about once every week and a half with Young Audiences staff.
All right, let's get to one more question here, and we'll move on. Is there anything that you would do different if this opportunity presented itself again in the future?
I think in the future it would be great to really delve deeper into those other 3 alternatives, the top ones. Like I said, we didn't really have any information about the venues that would be used, the availability of celebrities, so maybe a deeper dive into those would be great.
Okay, one more just came in, and since we are we seem to be a few minutes ahead of schedule here, so let's answer this. If small utility curves are established for each value measure, then uncertainty can impact the utility. So I guess that's more of a contribution to the thought than a question. If there's any follow-on comment to that comment.
Yeah, let me jump in, Amelia, and just say that certainly that's correct. We could certainly put uncertainty into this assessment, and we asked them if they wanted to do that. We did a little bit more sensitivity analysis, and then they said, let's wait the uncertainty until we address these three in detail. So the utility functions were there, and we just needed the uncertainty assessment, which I think will happen afterwards when they come back to us with more of the details on those three top alternatives. Good question, though.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our questions being posed for this part of the webinar. So I guess we can jump into segment 2. So just check the question list here. Okay, let's moving on here. Now I'd like to introduce CC Chen, who will talk about our work in data visualization. All of us are familiar with basic ways of representing data, such as bar charts and pie charts. What is often missing are the insights to be gained in seeing what needs to be seen to make better decisions. We need new ways to show that it is easy to follow visual tools. So CC will share with you a couple of things we here at Chromite have been doing in this area. CC will then introduce our last speaker. Take it away, CC.
Thank you so much, Matt. Okay, ready? I believe everyone has some familiarity with data visualization. It is very popular and continues to become more so. The reason why data visualization is so popular today is partially because of the ease of development for mobile devices. A lot of data visualization tools are available on the market, like Tableau, Excel, to name just two. Imagine you give people tons of spreadsheets. Such an ocean of data could be really confusing. Data would be meaningless if people cannot get useful information from them. For example, if I give you a chart with several bars and numbers and color every bar but without telling you what each bar stands for and what the axis represents, the data here loses its function to deliver useful information. Okay, now I know each bar represents a project, and bar height stands for the project value, and different colors might represent different project status. To wrap up, numbers are meaningless without context. The only way to understand them is to make them visual and relative. Now you will start to have a different relationship with numbers. And more importantly, you will start to see patterns and connections between numbers. That is also why data visualization is so important for data analytics. And now I would like to introduce everybody to two data visualization tools developed by Chromite to help decision analytics. The first one is Patient Flow Simulator. Patient Flow Simulator can show doctors, researchers, or specialists the patient progression between different stages of a disease. The second one is Decision Inventory tool. R&D departments always have many individual projects going on every year. The collection of all individual decisions of the portfolio is called Decision Inventory. Now I think we're ready to talk about more details of Patient Flow Simulator and Decision Inventory tool. Patient Flow Simulator is a mathematical model used to simulate the progression of patients through stages of a disease. Here we use lung cancer as an example. The main purpose of the tool is to visualize the patient flow and display the portion of patients going from previous stage to next stage. With a modern frame in place, we can generate visualization for various outcomes. For example, under Patient Outcomes tab, there are two cases. One is base case. which represents a group of patients taking the standard care of drugs. Another one is drug IO. IO here stands for immune oncology, representing another group of patients taking a hypothetically new treatment for lung cancer. Under each case, we have different diagnosis stages. For example, stage 4 under base case. Different color represents different stage patients. And pink area here stands for the mortality rate of patients who diagnosed with lung cancer at stage 4. So technically, if patients are diagnosed with lung cancer in earlier stage 2 or stage 3, they will have a greater chance of survival. So here you can say, if I change stage 4 to stage 3 or stage 2, the green area, the mortality rate actually decrease. Also, we can make comparison between different cases. So if I change stage 4 base case to stage 4 drug IO case, the green area also dropped down a little bit, which represents that new treatment of lung cancer is better than standard care. Also, we can get same outcome conclusion from other outcome tab. For example, patient flow tab. So under patient flow tab, you can literally see the progression of patients from previous stage to next stage. Using drug IO case, for example, so that's a portion of patients going from stage 3 to stage 4, and that's the mortality portion. Same here, you can make comparison between different cases. This chart combined a lot of databases for different diagnosis stages. Some are free, some are paid databases. That's also one convincing way to show the importance of data visualization. Visualizing information is a form of knowledge compression. It is a way of squeezing an enormous amount of information and understanding into a really small space. I would love to talk more about this, but due to time, let's move on to decision inventory tool. The following scenario is taken from a typical pharmaceutical company, but this could apply to a variety of industries. R&D department has a rich discussion about the value, risk, timing, and cost of every project. But the testing process takes place on its own schedule, not some quarterly or annual schedule. CFOs are always trying to match up an annual budget with successes and failures that occur during the year. It is always a challenge for them. Here's where decision inventory tool will help leaders, CFOs, or portfolio managers plan better, react quicker, and share their status with more transparency. Pharmaceutical companies are always facing the problem deciding deterministic budget for that fiscal year. And CFOs always have the difficulty beyond the timing of the cost. What happens if more projects succeed than previously expected? Conversely, what happens if more projects failed than previously expected? Is there another project waiting for the extra money? Now let's do a case study together here. Imagine we're on January 1st, 2018, and we just start to build our project inventory. Since it's just a sample demo, so all our project names here are fictitious. This is how our inventory chart looks like now on January. All decisions are probabilistic and uncertain. Each bar here represents an individual project. Bar high stands for out-of-pocket spend for that project. For example, Schrödinger's cat January asked for $7 million budget in 2018. Values on top of bar represent project values. So Schrödinger's cat January project has a project value 21. Round line here stands for total budget for that year. So the default setting here is $350 million for 2018. Blue line here represents expected cumulative spend. So on January 2018, without any decision being made, the expected cumulative spend is a little bit under budget. Okay, now time flies. We are on May 31st, 2018. So we already made all decisions for all projects that have decision points before May 31st. And here we actually can see the rationale why we made those decisions. So the reason why we stopped Schrödinger's cat January project is because the trial experiment failed. Also, we can tell compared with January 2018, the blue line here, expected cumulative spend goes up a little bit and just meets up the total budget. So let me go back. Okay. Why? Because we decided to fund two of the projects, which means we want those projects to go forward. Fast forward to today, October 17th. Now all decisions for projects that have decision points before October have been made. So now this is how our decision inventory chart looks like. We made a lot of tough decisions this year, including put a hold on some really valuable projects and stopping others completely. That is a trade-off we have to make because of limited budget. Also, you guys might have noticed that there is a really valuable project waiting for us in December. So this project has a project value 24, but only asking for $4 million budget that year. Here you can see we hold Scorpion, Mercury, because they have same project value or even lower project value, but requesting higher budget. That's why we want to hold the previous projects to save budget for that one. After decision of all December projects have been made, if we are still under budget, we can always go back and fund the valuable hold project. There's definitely more to share for decision inventory too. The main idea here is every individual project has its own value and its own risk. And we have to make the trade-off between value and risk among all projects. Due to the time constraint, I probably need to stop here. And now I would like to briefly introduce our partner, Scott Evans. We all live in a global village because of the internet, but you never know who really is on the other side of the social media. Sometimes it might not even be a human being. Also, you might never know what business opportunity is waiting for you. We posted our decision inventory to demo on LinkedIn, and Scott reached out to us via LinkedIn. So now let's welcome Scott Evans. He will share with us how he sees the business opportunity of decision inventory too. Scott.
Thanks, Shishi, and I'm really excited to be here. It's just starting to rain a little bit in the morning, so it's really interesting. And yeah, what I'll do with the final session here, is I'll just go back in time as to what was going on before the moment I just saw decision inventory on LinkedIn. And then I'll move forward quickly to where we're at today and what we've got planned next. And then I suppose finish off with a final takeaway message, because I like decision analysis, but it's a very hard concept to sell. So let's go back in time, go back 3 months, and what was going on? Well, I'm a small business. I want to grow, but probably more importantly, I wanted to scale. And I'll touch on this in a little bit more detail, because I think that really emphasized the value of what decision analysis can offer. And then I was going, okay, well, how am I going to do this? Well, visualizations are becoming very popular, and I was looking for one. And I was just scrolling on LinkedIn as you do, and I go, oh well, decision inventory. That looks pretty cool. I think I could sell that. And then I go, oh wow, that's Chromite. So it's got decision analysis embedded into it. And then this led to the natural next step of, hey, can I work with anyone in Australia? So that's pretty much how I got started. And from there was sort of moved on. So maybe, Shishi, if you just going to the next slide. Great. So really try to keep it really simple, because with all these new initiatives, they're most likely to fail. So fail really quickly and move on very fast. So we just create some simple structures. We looked at the whole market because I wanted to have a very diversified approach other than just focus on big pharmaceuticals, which is where the technology came from. And just get up there and sell on campaign. And so that's what we did. And we did this for a few months. And what became really clear is we were able to then narrow down where we're going to focus our energy. What's the bowling alley strategy? What's going to be the first 20 customers that we're going to acquire? And it became very obvious. It's going to be companies that were just like me. They want to grow, but not just grow. They want to scale, and that lends itself to the Fast 100 companies. So that's our current target over the next 3 months. Then we'll have more insights and stories to tell before the end of the year. So because it did take us a broad strategy, we actually uncovered 2 more segments, but I'll leave that for another day. But really what happened during this period is a lot of learning, a lot of changing, and we moved things around a lot. Shishi, if you just mind going to the next slide. Great. So what it really involved us doing was taking a very sophisticated product that was for a very large company, and I wanted to make it more broader appeal to a wider range of companies. And the reason for doing that is if I was only targeting big pharmaceutical companies in Australia, there's not many, so the campaign won't last very long. Whereas if you go mid-market, we could probably do something for 12 months and still have more work to do. So that was really important. I needed to find a way to get more scalability in the campaign. So then we looked at, well, okay, we've got the company, who are we going to target? And what stories are around those people that are going to get engaged? So then we did that. And now we've pretty much got the type of company we want to focus on. We've now got the role of the CFO we're going to be targeting. And the question is, we need to do a promotional offer to get some initial sales. How are we going to do it? Well, we've got to focus on a very specific problem. And now that's what we've really honed in on, focusing on the portfolio, investment portfolio, and making that a much more convenient process where we get more visibility. I think because definitely they want to have more insights. The question is, how do you do it? So Shishi, if you start going to the next slide. So the question is, if I took Decision Inventory as it is today into the market and sell it, would that be enough? And unfortunately, with some of the testing that I did, they go, you know what, that's awesome, I love it. That will definitely help my role. I'll be able to make much better decisions. But you know what? It just seems like too much hard work. And then I was like, oh, no way. I've created an inconvenient truth. It's like, so I go, well, look, what I want to do, I want to find a way where I can solve this and make it convenient. Because if I can make it convenient, I can sell this. And so I said, well, we've got the decision inventory, we've got the expertise in decision analysis. What's missing? And it's actually at the business portfolio level. And I thought, well, okay, what about if I create a role called a portfolio curator? It doesn't really do the analysis, but the role really is focusing on the business portfolio level to work out what are all the trade-offs they're not considering. And now that's pretty much what we're going to do. So we've got our target company, we've got our target role, we've got our offer, we've got a way of actually making it really simple and easy now. And now it's pretty much over the next 3 months, seeing what happens, how the traction happens. So I'm really excited. And I suppose the really takeaway message here is that, when we are looking at doing these visualizations, probably it's going to create some type of inconvenient truth. And we need to find ways of reducing that brain effort because they don't want to do it, create a role to take it on, solve a problem, and then you can move on. And And so I thank you for the opportunity to share a few insights. And now I'll hand back to Xixi to close that off. Thank you.
I'll hand off to Matt for the Q&A part.
Okay, well, thank you both, Xixi and Scott. Very informative. At this time, I'd like to open this up to questions and answers for the second segment of this webinar. And if anybody has any questions for Amelia in the first part that didn't get asked, we can certainly accept them as well. I do see a couple coming in. So why don't we start with more recently the decision inventory tool. Is it possible for us to build a decision inventory for multiple or say years other than the current year?
Thank you, Matt. I'm really glad someone asked this question since we don't have enough time to go through every detail. The answer is yes. We can build a decision inventory for multiple years as long as we have enough data. So actually in our sample demo, if you go back to data set, and we actually have three options listed here, 17, 18, and 19 year. If we go back to 17 and save all the data change, and we can actually say what decisions you've been made in 2017 and all the past projects. Also, we can go to 2019, save our data change. And we can also say all the future projects and the total budget. You can always change your default setting here. So as long as we have the data, we can build our own decision inventory for multiple years. In this way, we can check the budget across multiple years and see the change of decision inventory cost, risk, and value. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Xixi. We have a couple more questions that are popping in here. On the dashboard that we're looking at, I believe it's the one we're looking at here. What is the x-axis? Is that time or project name? So I think we can clarify what the x-axis. Oh. Yes. So we're just looking for clarification.
Sure. So the name here are all project name, but you can say we also have January, February, April, May here. So actually the project are aligned by the order of time. So the first object has a decision point in January. So this one has a decision point on February. So this one will be put next to January projects. So it's a time order.
So I think we can further to this. This is a little bit customizable. I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly in 1 month increments. But I think for the purposes of this demo, I might be mistaken. This is your area, Xixi, but I think we can also further say that that it need not be in the exact same time chunks. So basically, the decision points, right? Okay.
Yes.
Several questions are coming in here. I'm just trying to keep up with them all. Okay, let's, while I'm going through here, I had one highlighted here. So, I'm going to, so this is for the patient flow simulator. And as I said in the introduction, we have Steve Hamlin on board with us, who was involved in the early days of creating the patient flow simulator. So we have a question here: is how can we compare different treatments and how each would improve or change the patient flow?
Again,
there you go. Okay. Yep.
That's a good question. So the simulator is built in the view you're seeing to reflect the overall market, all right, across all treatments in aggregate number of patients. But the way we've actually used this with the client is helping them develop their trial design, looking at what stage of disease, line of therapy, comparator, and then also endpoint, progression-free survival, overall survival they expect. And we simulated their actual product they were developing across different trial design scenarios, and we're able to show the impact on the treatment paradigm and patient flow downstream across duration of time each patient and the population would spend relative to the current market. So we can actually simulate to optimize trial design, endpoint selection, and even comparator selection in the context of the simulator.
Excellent. Okay, well, we're getting several questions here. This looks like it might be for Scott. What does it mean to put a portfolio curator box on your slide? Are you saying that when you sell the tool, you have to also convince the customer to hire a portfolio curator?
Very good question. Yeah, so it's a managed service. So rather than selling the technology, and then the customer has to work out how it works, upskill, and then work out how to engage with decision analysis consultants. That's sort of like the managed service that I'll offer, so that I can coordinate all that. I can speak both languages, but the main emphasis is not so much in the project evaluations of what the portfolio curator role is. It's mainly looking at their portfolio as it is today, and then expanding on that, having a creative process where we basically highlight all the other alternatives that aren't being considered, work with the decision analysis team, and then fill in the gaps. And then basically what they get back is the visualization of all of the other things they could be considering, and the feeling that I want them to experience is, I go, wow, I now have more visibility than I've ever had before. I didn't know it was so easy. Because the only reason why they're not doing it is not because they don't want to. It's just that they can't think. It's too hard for them, and they're too busy, and they're too distracted, and there's too many things going on. So if I can take that on and offer as a service, so they're not selling necessarily technology implementation. It's more around ongoing managed service, and I think that's a simple way of getting them on board first, getting that initial experience, and then from them they may want deeper dives and upskill, but it's really getting that initial consultation and the initial experience needs. In my view, this is what the proof of the pudding will be over the next 3 months, is a bit more of a human element that can simplify it for them. So yeah, good question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Well, I'd like to allot maybe 2 or 3 more minutes to Q&A before we start wrapping things up, and we probably have more questions coming in that can be answered. So let me address one here. I think this will be an easy one, then we'll get to one maybe a little bit more difficult. And then I think this is the decision inventory tool. How is the project value determined?
I think project value is customized, really defined by the company. So different company can have different unit, different scale of the project value. So we don't have unit for project value here. It could be million, billion, or just a number.
If I could add to that too, Shishi, is that often a decision inventory is the result of a really good portfolio management meeting that's had at the beginning of the year or before the beginning of the fiscal year. And so usually you'll be using some kind of value assessment of each project going into that portfolio review. And this just is an indicator of whatever you use for your portfolio value you would put up there.
Thank you, Jack.
Okay. I have 2 questions on uncertainty, and I believe this is around the decision inventory tool. So I will ask both questions and throw it out to our speakers to maybe tackle them one and the same here. First one is there a way to incorporate uncertainty in project spend and show high-low cumulative spend in addition to expected cumulative spend? And if there was uncertainty assigned to the project spend, then there could be a confident, again, this is more of a statement. Let me just revert back to the question again. I'll read the question. Is there a way to incorporate uncertainty in project spend and show high-low cumulative spend in addition to expected cumulative spend?
I think the answer would be yes. So I'm going to show you guys how we calculate cumulative spend. So for future projects, they are all probabilistic. So we actually have approved the probability here. So the cumulative expected spend would be project value times probability, and you're adding up all the projects. So if you want to do high or low, do a range. So there could be another column. So for lower bound for the probability, upper bound for the probability. So for the inventory chart, you maybe add 2 more lines. So one would be the minimum expected cumulative spend. Another line could be maximum expected cumulative spend. So that would be the way how we do it.
Okay, let's see if we can sneak in. I think it's dropped my earbud. Let's sneak in one last question before we jump to our poll question, and then we will wrap things up. Again, a lot of questions here on this inventory tool. You commented on a future project with good value to investment ratio in the project portfolio inventory. This seems important, but your tool doesn't make that ratio salient. And any plans to address this?
So I'd like to jump in there, Shishi, if I could. Great question. You know, one tool doesn't do everything. So this is meant to be an operational tool to help you keep aligned with your strategy, at the same time meet your operational budget. This one measure of 1 year's spend or even the next year's spend is not an overall estimate of the overall cost. So you could put, instead of, for your PV, instead of an overall value, you could put your ratio of value to cost, and that could be your measure. So there's ways of bringing that ratio that you just mentioned into play here and make that your project value number. Hopefully that answers some of your question anyway.
Well, thank you, Jack. Looking at it, we have under 2 minutes to go, so we'd like to hand the ball back to Hilda to display our poll question. And we do have one question we'd like to ask to the audience before wrapping things up here. Hilda would take this back. Okay, so if anything you saw today was of interest and you are interested in learning more, and we will not be, we do not engage in spam or anything else, we will not add you to any lists. But if there's anything that interests you and you'd like to learn more, may we reach out to you by email. And if you're satisfied with everything you learned today, then you would just select the second box. We are happy to share more with you in the future. So please feel free to answer this. We will not display the results here. They'll be kept private. And as you will, of course, your email address. We will not add you to any lists. So we'll keep this up for a few seconds. And Hilda, when you think sufficient time has elapsed. Okay, terrific. And so this is my contact information. Again, my name is Matt Gorman. I serve as a moderator for this call. I want to thank all of my colleagues and our collaborator in Australia, especially Scott, for being up at literally the middle of the night. And at this moment, I guess I can hand this off to Hilda for, Jack?
Yeah, sure. Just wanted to take 1 second. This wasn't planned, but I see that Homi Razavi is online. He's the founder of Chromite way back in 2003, and I'm glad he joined us today. Thank you, Homi.
Oh, terrific. Excellent. Thank you, Homi. Good to see you virtually. So with that, about 20 seconds left of the hour. Hilda, I'll hand you back to the ball to close things up.
Thank you, Matt, for a great presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's Learning Exchange. I'd like to thank our presenters and the Chromite team for their time and contributions to today's event. I'd like to remind you that you may find a replay of this webinar and all previous webinars in the Society of Decision Professionals website at decisionprofessionals.com. Thank you for being with us today, and you may now disconnect.
I think I'm supposed to call you.